Hi, welcome back to my channel. This is Tiffany Vendries, where we help women and families travel, build wealth, and live richer. So today we're talking to Monique, the traveling Jamaican, and she's going to tell us about why she left Mexico. So let me bring her on.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
good. How are you doing?
I am pretty good as well, just kind of enjoying being in Florida right now.
Good. So let's start by you introducing yourself and telling us about your channel so people can find you.
Okay, so my name is Monique from Kingston, Jamaica, and I have been like I've been working from home before the big pandemic happened. So I was always doing kind of like the freelance work thing, and I've always also wanted to travel. So once upon a time, I tried to do that, and then the big pandemic happened. That didn't work out, but eventually we got on the road, and so I started a travel channel to document that journey. Of it. At the time, it was me, my teenage daughter, and my parents on the road, kind of traveling through South America and Mexico. And yeah, that's kind of my spiel, I guess. I'm just this traveling Jamaican going around trying to figure out if I want to stay on the road or not, that kind of a thing. I was trying to do the digital nomad thing.
Yeah. Okay. That's so interesting. My family is also Jamaican, so that's why I found
Oh,
your channel. Yeah, I found your channel and I was like, "Oh, this is so nice." Yeah, they came to the US in the 80s.
yeah. What I was finding is that there are a lot of travel channels, but not many people who are leaving from Jamaica itself. There are a lot of people, like when I was doing my research, I was finding a lot of Americans,
Yeah.
even if they were of Jamaican descent. I was really trying to look for me. And I
Yeah.
was not finding a lot of people. Like, I know of people, obviously, who've left the islands, but they're not doing the whole YouTube thing. So
Right.
I was really trying to find people who are doing it from directly from Jamaica, leaving and seeing what path they took and how they did, and it wasn't a lot. So I was like, well, let me get on here.
Right. There's definitely a need to see things like from your perspective.
Right. And then the other part of that is that I'm traveling with a school age child. A lot of travel parents, I guess, are traveling with very young children. And so it's easy for them to be like, do the homeschool thing or no school at all because they're very, very young children. I had that other layer of trying to figure out school while we were on the road.
Yeah. So you ended up in Merida, right? Mexico. And why did you pick Merida over some of the other like cities you went to?
So when I started to do my research, it was just supposed to be me doing this wanderlust thing on my own. Nobody else was supposed to come with me. I was like, okay, maybe my daughter can go and live with her dad, and it would just be me on the road. And I actually started looking for places that I could live sufficiently on just 1,000 US dollars. So I was like, okay, let me do a very minimal budget just in case I'm on the road and anything happens. At the very least, I can survive off just $1,000. So when I was looking for those places, Bali kept coming up, and I was like, yes, I'm going to Bali. But Bali is halfway across the world, and I didn't, in the back of my head, I didn't want to be so far away from my parents and especially my child. So I started to go back to the drawing board and look for the list, and Merida kept coming up at this as this place that's close enough and very safe. Everybody kept touting that it was one of the safest places in all of North America, including even Canada. So I was like, okay, let me check it out. And I joined a few Facebook groups for Americans and not Americans, expats. So it was primarily Americans living in Merida because I wanted to see what their lifestyle was like, and I wanted to see people who looked like me. So I started to join Black Americans. Like, I started to look on Facebook for Black expats and I joined Black expats in Merida, Black expats in Mexico City. A bunch of different Facebook groups popped up, and in Merida, I saw where they had like this teen group, and I was like, okay, this sounds interesting because at this point I've decided that I'm going on the road with my teen. So I'm like, I need something for her too. It has to match for her. And so Merida came up with this teen club, and I was like, oh, this looks like something that I wanted to join when I was a teen. So I was like, okay, it seems like a match. It seems affordable, it seems safe, and it seems like my teenage daughter, when we get there, she'll have friends and everything. So that's kind of what cinched it for me, is really and truly, it looked like she was going to love it there as well.
Okay, so outside of Bali, did you think of any other locations that you were going to move to?
They were all in South America. Like I think Panama kept coming up on the list, and Costa Rica kept coming up on the list. Although when I did my research, Costa Rica didn't seem that affordable to me at all. So, but they were all places in South America. And then I remember when we actually left, we went to Panama first.
Yeah.
And I was like, we were in Panama City though. So I was like, these prices are Miami prices. Like, I feel like I'm still in Jamaica. And I realized really quickly that Panama was not going to work. When I was researching the tickets to get to Mexico, you do that map where you're trying to see where the cheapest tickets are. And Bogota, Colombia came up, and the flights were under $100. I was like, oh, let's go check out Bogota. Colombia was not on my radar any at all. And we went over to Colombia, and I absolutely loved it there. Actually, it was even more affordable than Merida turned out to be. It was just that we were not prepared for Bogota. It was just a fly-by-night kind of trip. And Bogota is very cold. I did not expect that. So we didn't pack like sweaters and, cold stuff. So I was miserable, but I loved it. But I was miserable. It was like a whole thing. So yeah.
Okay, so you get to Merida, and then what is the visa process like for you and your family?
Right. So we are Jamaicans, and usually Jamaicans need a visa anywhere we go, but Mexico and a few other places in South America are visa free for us, and you will get 180 days to stay. So 6 months right off the bat.
Okay.
So I wasn't yet looking into living any one place. Remember, we were supposed to be digital nomads. So I was like, cool, 6 months is the perfect amount of time. I can go there and figure out if I like it or we move on. So really and truly, we were supposed to be in Merida for 6 months. What happened was, by the time we got there, remember, I'm traveling with my parents, who my father especially, he is of a certain age. He also went through certain health issues. I realized really quickly that traveling around the world was not going to work out for him. So
Okay.
I decided that, okay, I need to find a home base where they're comfortable, they're okay staying there. Maybe I can travel on and, do some other whatever, but I need a home base for my parents especially. So when we got to Merida, I was like, I like it here. This really and truly could be it. So we were doing the Airbnb thing, and that's when I started to look into, okay, how can we stay here longer? How can we actually get a resident visa? And that's when I realized that they had this program going on where if you're in the country, I think they had like COVID program where if you're in the country and you got stuck, you can apply for a resident visa within Mexico. Because remember, generally you have to be outside of Mexico, you go to the consulate, you do all the things to apply for residency.
Okay.
But because of COVID, they had started this new program where if you're in the country over 6 months and you get stuck, you can apply. And they just kept rolling that program over. And so what I did was wait until I qualified for that program and did it and got a resident visa.
Okay. So, and you were able to do that for everybody in the family, got that same visa?
That was the plan, because we were, eventually supposed to stay there. I did mine first because it does cost quite a bit. It ended up costing something like I think the visa itself was like $1,100 and I paid someone to help me through the process, and that was another probably $500. So it was going to be quite a bit to do all 4 people at one time. So what we were doing was still doing like visa runs, pretty much, like leave the country and come back and get another 6 months.
Okay.
So right. So I did mine first, and then everybody else was like traveling to come back in.
Okay, got it. And so you're in Merida, and what's like the cost of living there? Like, how much was your your rent and your utilities? Did you get a car? How did that go?
So I actually did like a video outlining all of my costs. And it's interesting because I did two videos, one when all four of us were there, and then one when my parents went back home. Because over time, I realized that even though Merida was, it would have worked out, my father's health issue and some other things that were happening, because my parents are actually not together. So there were constant clashes with them in the house. I was like, all right, this is not going to work, guys. And so they ended up going back to Jamaica, I think like a year after we landed. So the cost of living when all four of us was there it came out to around maybe 2,500 US dollars per month for just basic everything. So like our rent, I did have a car. I included the car payment in that. Rent, utilities, even I think some amount of like eating out was in that budget. So for four people, I think that was pretty good. That wasn't bad at all. And then a year later, I did it again when it was just me and my daughter, and that ended up being about 1,500 US dollars very comfortably. And I was like, okay, this isn't bad at all. Because remember, I was really researching $1,000 for just myself. So with my daughter involved, it being $1,500, I was like, this is doable. I can do this. Cool.
Okay, and so how was like the healthcare system? Because you're living there now. So what did you do if anything happened?
Healthcare, well, okay, so I did not have any major like emergencies, thankfully. So I can't speak to like hospital stays. But I did do some things, like I went to the eye doctor and got my prescriptions refreshed. I went to the dentist. I was having an issue because I'm low iron. And I did have an issue with like just feeling faint and stuff. And I went to the doctor for that. I found that all of like my doctor visits were comparable to Jamaica. So it was which is very affordable. Like you're not, unless you're going to like high-end hospitals and, private facilities. Jamaica's healthcare system is very affordable as well. And I found that to be the same in Mexico. So I was, very, and it was very, it felt very high end. Like I do have one video when I went to deal with my whole iron thing, and I have another video when I went to the eye doctor. Yeah, it was very nice facilities. I felt very well taken care of. I tried to look for doctors who speak some amount of English because, even though I'm there trying to learn the language, when it comes to like healthcare stuff, you want to be able to ask the questions and understand what's going on. So, I definitely didn't want to be the person who was like, oh, I need someone who speaks English. But for certain things, I want to kind of have a deep understanding of what's happening. So I would look in the expat groups, like, where are you guys going for, these services? And I would get recommendations of people who speak English and go there. And even though these were like English speaking doctors, it still was an exorbitant fee. So I was very happy with the cost of healthcare in Mexico.
Okay. So my mom says hi.
Hi, Mom. Thank you for joining us.
And she wanted to know, how old is your daughter, and how did she adjust to the teachings?
My daughter, when we just got there, she was still 12 years old. She is now 14. When we just got there, we were still doing online school from Jamaica because we had, we were traveling around and around and around. So there were still some schools in Jamaica who was doing online stuff from COVID days, when everybody was online. There was one school that kind of stuck to that, and that became their thing. That there were online. I think they're still online to this day.
Okay.
So that's what my daughter was doing. Eventually, she started to want to, go to school with friends and stuff. So remember that teen club that I was saying that was very attractive for us being part of the decision why I chose Merida. That teen club, out of that grew some kind of, what would you call that? A homeschool pod, I guess. So it was started by an American, and her children, she has teenagers as well. Her children were homeschooled, and she has a whole program for them. So what she did was create like a homeschool pod and invited other homeschoolers to join this kind of high school setting. where all of the homeschoolers would go and do homeschooling together. And it was following an American curriculum, but I was okay with that because I think eventually I will try to get my daughter into a college in America. So I was like, okay, this is fine. You can do this. So eventually she kind of went over to that, and that worked out because she had friends who was at this homeschool pod, and they were doing the schooling, plus they were doing like music classes and cooking classes, and it was a really fun, enriching environment. And so that's what we ended up doing for that. So if we had stayed, the plan was to get her in an actual Mexican high school because I wanted her to have that immersion so that she would have learned the language much faster and all of that. That was the plan, but we didn't stay.
Okay. So my mom, she says from Jamaica down to Mexico, what was the deciding factor?
I really and truly think that it was proximity to Jamaica. Like it was easier for me to get back to Jamaica if I needed to. Because out of Cancun, there are still no direct flights. The only place that had a direct flight from Jamaica would be Panama, and I had already ruled out Panama City. So it was the quickest, the flights were affordable, and it had a different culture. I definitely wanted to be somewhere that the culture was completely different. I wanted to learn Spanish and, do the salsa dances and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of, I was just trying to be digital nomad, but starting with countries that I thought were easiest, like soft landing is what they say. Yeah.
Okay, so in Merida, did you feel safe walking around at night?
I did. And when it comes to the deciding factor, the safety was a big issue because I wanted somewhere as a single woman with a female child. I was just like, it needs to be somewhere safe. And I'm leaving Jamaica, where Jamaica is not the safest place on earth when it comes to like walking and, being out at night. Like in Jamaica, I would have fear sending my child in an Uber by herself. Mm-hmm. And as a mom, I will have that fear anywhere in the world. But in Mexico, I eventually kind of mellowed out enough where I started to allow her to take Ubers by herself. And, it was completely fine. I remember one night I was downtown in Central with one of my friends, and we were bar hopping, and I was thinking to myself, I would never do this downtown in Kingston, Jamaica. You would never find me like walking from bar to bar in the streets at night in Jamaica. So it just depends on where exactly. But I mean, like, because we were downtown Merida, I was like, I would not do this downtown Kingston. Yeah. Maybe uptown Kingston, certainly. But, it's just kind of like the safety. There was a palpable difference in the safety. Like for me, you could walk the streets and feel safe, and no one was catcalling you. And it was just, the safety was measurable.
Yeah, that's interesting. What you say about downtown Kingston. It's interesting. I went to Merida and I walked around, and yeah, I felt totally fine by myself.
And then, so this past summer, I actually when I went back to Jamaica, I made a point of going downtown and walking around because there's this whole point to kind of revamp downtown Kingston. And I was like, if I can do this anywhere else in the world, I should be able to do it in my home country. And I made a point to go downtown and, take pictures and videos of myself in the art walk that they have downtown now. But and I see the vision, like they have this whole bar street set up that they're trying to do downtown. I'm still trying to figure out if I'd ever be comfortable walking downtown at night. But in the daytime, it was
fine. Good. My mom says, does your family come to visit?
That is a recurring thing in Mexico. Like I know a lot of people who rent these big places because they're like, I need a guest room. So when people come to visit, nobody comes to visit. Like everybody's afraid of Mexico. Like we do all the research to make sure that we are choosing somewhere that we think is safe, and they don't trust us. They're like, I'm not coming. So I did not have. I have friends who are big on talk. Yes, I'm coming. Just tell me when. Nobody ever came. Nobody came to visit me. Oh.
My mom said, not a backside in Jamaica. She's talking about when you were talking about walking around at night.
Not a backside. I agree, Mom. Not a backside. Yeah. Yeah, I can see, like, there are certain entertainment hubs in Jamaica, like in New Kingston, where I'm sure I'd walk from bar to bar, and I've done that. The downtown thing, and downtown is so beautiful. I really hope they do revamp it and people start to feel safer down there, but not me, not yet. Not the backside.
So, did you move to Merida with a job?
So I've always been working online. I was doing freelance copywriting for a few agencies when I left Jamaica. And I also like do my own social media. And so every now and then I'll get some money in from that, because I don't think that's ever that my social media pages were never like where my focus was. I was always a freelance copywriter.
Right.
Starting the journey, I definitely said, you need as many income sources as you can, just in case something happens. And so I did start to focus, especially on my YouTube, and that's been going pretty well. So right now, that's pretty much what I'm focusing on, is building my YouTube channel. When I get back to Jamaica, I'll probably go back to the workforce. But right now, I'm just doing YouTube.
I would love to see you do like the same thing, but in Jamaica. So like your life in Jamaica, like where do you go? Like how is what do you do on a Saturday? What's the cost of living? Like what does it look like? Your apartment or your house? That would be cool too for people who are living here.
That is the plan. I have had a lot of requests for that. So, it's funny because when I was in Jamaica and I had the channel, I didn't think that that would have been a thing. But, now that I've started to gain like subscribers and people are following me for the Merida content, they're like, yeah, no, we'll still follow you. We want to see everything. We want to see you apartment hunt when you go back. We want to see all the things. So yeah, I'm excited to like continue that journey.
Yeah, because my family's here and my mom talks about Jamaica, but it's like 30 years later. So what is it
Yeah.
like now? And there's things that she hasn't done, like find a house. Like she was younger when she was there.
Right.
That would be
Yes, I've spoken to a few expats, to a lot of Jamaican immigrants who have moved elsewhere. The longer you stay abroad, it's like the more out of touch you are. So you're like scared to go back. You don't know anyone. You don't know where to start. You don't know anything. And so I think my mom, she's starting a business, kind of doing that, like relocation services for people who want to come back home. Because when she was in Merida with me, that's what people were doing for Merida. But then, so my mom is in her 60s, and when she was in Merida, she started a group for people who were of that age, who still wanted friends and go out and stuff like that. When we got to Merida, she was like, how am I going to make friends? I was like, well, you have to start your own group. And she did end up starting like a WhatsApp group for 50 and over people, and they she started parties and events for them, and they really love that. So I think she wants to kind of carry that over to Jamaica and help people who, even if you don't want to come and live, but you want someone to kind of take you around to this, feel like you have a tour guide who knows the place. That's kind of what my mom is still doing back in Jamaica now, is setting herself up so that when people come to visit, even if you were Jamaican but you don't know anyone anymore, you've lost touch with the place, she's can definitely help you out in a different kind of tour guide setting. So she's gonna take you, I mean, if you want to go, she'll take you to Dungeon for Falls and stuff, but she's gonna take you to her hangout spots and things like that.
My mom said you could add her to your WhatsApp chat. And
I would definitely send me her number so she can that is so funny. Yeah, and my mom, she is a night owl, so she will take you out in the streets at night if you want to, venture out. She will definitely do that.
So how did your quality of life improve from moving from Jamaica to Merida? So you already talked about like safety. You felt like you could socialize more, and like what else?
You know what? I find that move did, and this was part of the reason why I left. My move showed me that everything that I wanted out of life, I had it back. I had it back home. I was just not living out loud. I was not doing the things. Because when you move to a new country, you are forced to make the friends and do the things and put on the events and start the invites and things like that. Because if you move and you have no social life, you can get depressed because your friends back home are still living life. You're now in a new country. You have to get out of your shell. And I realized that my quality of life, it exploded because I was forcing myself to go outside and go to the events that were being put on and talk to people and do all the things. And I wasn't doing that back home. I was just, in the rat race, as they say, doing the same things over and over and over and over. And I was just like, what I started to miss from being home, I was just like, I could have made my life so much more fulfilling at home if I was pushing myself to do these things at home as well. Because one of the things, while I love Mexico and I love all the lessons that it taught me, I missed home a lot. And I think the journey showed me that I didn't necessarily want to live anywhere else. I just wanted to travel more. I really just wanted to do more travel. And so even that, Mexico taught me that, is that the quality of life that I wanted for myself was to be home in Jamaica doing all the things, but then traveling more. You don't need to live anywhere else, because when you move, you're still you. You're still you, and you end up falling back into the same routines. And I was like, if I'm going to do the same routine, I want to do it in Jamaica. So let me do it in Jamaica and then travel more, have the experiences, and then go back home.
Yes. So what did you miss exactly about Jamaica? Was it the food? Because when I go to Mexico, I really enjoy it, but I just don't think I could eat tacos every day. And they eat it for like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm like, no, ma'am. You can start a Jamaican restaurant in Merida.
My mom was doing that. She was like cooking and selling plates, but it wasn't the food. It was really the nightlife. Like I went out in Mexico. I did the thing. A lot of expats, because you want to do the things that you did at home. And so a lot of expats, they started their own events, and I would go to these events, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't home. And even if I'm going to an expat event, they're going to be playing like American music. I wanted to hear my dancehall and my reggae and, have my kind of hangouts. And it was just, the yearning got strong enough for me to be like, I'm not going to build the kind of social life that I want for myself in Mexico. I'm just not. I realized that. So what did I miss mostly was my social circle, my experiences that I had in Jamaica. I miss those. And then that's why I realized that I don't need to live anywhere else, because I can go to Mexico and explore what Mexico has and appreciate Mexico, and then go back home and,
Yeah.
be with my home comforts.
Yeah. So did you experience any racism while living in Mexico?
I did not. I did not experience any kind. Well, or maybe I don't know, but because there is a language barrier, but I don't think I ever felt slighted at all or any kind of. Yeah, I don't think I did. No.
So what's the culture like there? Like what are the people like in your opinion?
They are very welcoming. They're actually very welcoming. They're very warm. They're very nice. They're very helpful. And especially when they realize that you don't speak the language, but as long as you try, because I'm gonna go there and learn a few words, and so I'll say one word and they'll help me out, and then a lot of them have a few English words too. So with our Spanglish mixed together, they're very welcoming and very helpful, and I really enjoy interact. Anytime I was in a very Mexican space, I really enjoyed myself and interacting with with Mexicans, and yeah. So, and that's why I say, like, I really appreciate, because I even went on a few dates while I was there with a Mexican. So I really did appreciate their openness to me
Mhm.
and just welcoming me into their homes and their events. And it was nice. It really was.
So did you do any kind of language lessons while you
I
were
did.
there?
I did a few. I did a few very informal. There was another expat who invited someone to come into her home and teach a few of us. We had Spanish lessons at her home from a Mexican who was teaching us. And I was doing my own like self-study, watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. So yeah, I did some Spanish lessons.
Okay. And did you ever look into the schools there? Like, did you look into the public schools or the international schools where they teach in English and it's for foreigners? Did you look into any of that?
For my daughter, so I had actually selected which high school I was going to send her to, because
Okay.
there are quite a few private schools that will do like they will have English speaking students come in and they teach the lessons in half English and then half Spanish, they say, and it's like full immersion, so you're really and truly grasping the language. And so, because again, because she was 14 when we were looking for schools,
Uh-huh.
for me, I didn't want to just throw her in the deep end, and she's frustrated because she's not grasping the lesson, as well as she's trying to deal with the language barrier. That I can see how that can be setting her up for failure. And so we did identify a few private schools that did English, Spanish, or they had tutors who would help them out and things like that.
Okay. So my mom says, wait, so you're no longer residing in Mexico?
No, not right now. And a lot of people get confused about why I left Mexico, and they think that I'm leaving Mexico for reasons that I didn't put out there. So I want to reiterate that I'm not in Mexico right now. And there are two main reasons why I left Mexico. The first one was I was already kind of back and forth about missing home and knowing I wanted to move back home. My daughter loved Mexico enough where I said that I would have stayed long enough for her to finish high school there. I would have done that because there's nothing about Mexico I dislike so much that I couldn't live there for another 3 or 4 years. That was my, I had gotten comfortable with that, and so I actually have residency for the next 4 years in Mexico. Like, I paid for 4 years of residency. I left. So that was number one, is that, I always knew I was going to leave eventually because I wanted to go back home. The deciding factor in why I left now was I wasn't going to live somewhere where my mother could not visit me. And when
Mhm.
my mother went home, on her return to Mexico to try and come and visit me, they turned her back. And I have a whole video on that on my channel on what happened. And people are like, well, why would you leave? How does that affect you? And I'm like, that's my mom. I'm not going to live anywhere where my mom cannot come and visit me. That's just crazy to me. So I was like, oh, well, there is time to go. It's time to go.
Yeah, so that brings me to my next question, or I was going to ask you about your experience there and your mom being denied entry. I think people living here in the US, we don't realize what's happening in Mexico in regards to immigration, in regards to our policies influencing them and using Mexico to stop certain countries to come in to the United States. So if you could just speak on that, because I didn't know about this until I started talking to people who live in Mexico.
A lot, I think people who are US citizens and hold US passports are they don't know the passport privilege that they have. Like, I'm in these conversations with people who are like, oh yeah, we just book one-way flights and we don't worry about anything. I could never do that. If you want to go over to Europe, you're just looking at, oh, where is the cheapest place to land? It is a whole process for people who do not have that US passport, okay? So it has always been difficult to travel on a Jamaican passport. for a whole bunch of countries, not just Mexico. But now Mexico is clamping down even harder on Jamaicans, not just Jamaicans, like the wider, there are a whole bunch of countries, but I'm only speaking from a Jamaican perspective. It's really harder even now. Like all this year, I've heard a million stories of Jamaicans who have legit reasons to visit Mexico who have been turned back. You never know who or why they will turn you back. You never know when. So, when we first landed in Mexico, they asked us 11 million questions and scrutinized us a whole, time before they let all four of us go. And I think the fact that I already have a US visa influenced that a lot. So they are like, she's not coming to jump the border. She can go to the US if she wants to.
Yeah.
They will think, and not they will think. The reality is that Jamaica is a part of the many countries who come to Mexico to try to get over the US border. So on the streets in the US, when you're hearing people talk about Mexico, there is a big misconception that Mexicans are the majority of people who are trying to get into the US. It is not so. It is actually a whole lot of people from South America and other countries who come to Mexico first to try to get over the border. So, when there is this kind of like connotation about, oh, Mexicans are jumping the border, it's not just Mexicans, it's a whole lot of people. And unfortunately, I cannot deny the fact that Jamaicans are one of the countries that they come here to try and get into the US illegally. And because of that, they scrutinize every single Jamaican who lands to the T. If you have a US visa already, it is easier for them to be like, okay, you can go. But I have heard of even people with US visas who have been questioned, like, why are you here? What are you doing? And they have to have their paperwork all together. Like, I've spoken to a lot of Americans who are like, oh, just book a one-way flight. We cannot do that. We do not have that privilege. We have to have our return ticket already booked. You have to have your hotels. You have to be able to show that you've paid for your hotel. You've paid for excursions. Like, why are you here? What are you doing? What is your purpose? You have to be able to prove why you're coming to Mexico. And so when my mom was coming, because she has been to Mexico before, and because she's coming to visit me, who I'm a legal resident there, we dropped the ball, I guess, on remembering that we are still Jamaicans and we have to have all of this paperwork ready together when she approaches the immigration officers in Mexico. So when she approached the immigration officer, they asked her for an invitation letter. And honestly, that is not something that I would have been thinking about. Like, like she has my address. She has so she didn't need a hotel stay because she told them that she's coming to visit her daughter. They said that she did not have enough funds to cover her trip, which I don't know how they would have been able to prove that. But it's not on her. She's coming to visit her daughter, so she's gonna stay with me and whatever. So it's like I have the funds, not her.
Yeah.
But so I guess the fact that I didn't think to write an invite letter to say that my mom is coming to stay with me, I was just like, things that I did not think about. And so because she didn't have that invite letter, they turned her away and put her back on a plane to Jamaica the next day. And it was a whole thing. And it was very traumatizing because they're not going to treat you. They're going to treat you like a criminal when they decide to detain you. You are going to be locked up in some kind of detention room, and it is a whole thing. And ever since I did my video on our experience, I have gotten so many more stories of other Jamaicans that it has happened to. And there are people who have been detained for 3 days, 4 days, because they're waiting on flights back to put them on. So, yeah.
That's in the airport, or do they take you, like, there's a center in the airport?
There is like, I guess, a detention room in the airport that they put everybody on. And so when she was in that room, it was, as I said, it's not just Jamaicans who are coming to Mexico to try and jump the border. So she was in that room with Venezuelans, Colombians, Nicaraguans, Guatemalans. Like, they put everybody in this detention room, and that's just where you are. And once they decide that they're sending you back, you have no access to your phone. They take your passport, nothing of that. So like, people are like, a lot of people are like, oh, well, why didn't you reach out to the consulate? She does not have her phone. I was the one reaching out to the consulate when I realized what was happening. So yeah.
Yeah. So the video is on your channel, and it's Mo the Traveling Jamaican. That's your handle?
Mo the Traveling Jamaican.
Okay, I'm gonna put it here and then show it so people can go over there and watch that video, Mo the Traveling Jamaican. I watched it and I just thought it was so crazy because I've heard stories. For example, I've heard people say that they were on a bus in Mexico, like a public bus, and immigration officers or police officers will come on the bus and they only asked them to see their documentation, and everybody else on the bus were fine. They asked them to see documentation because they have brown skin, and they thought they were coming into the country in order to go cross the border into the U.S. So I did not know.
Definitely, when we were in Querétaro, which is another Mexican city, and when we were in Mexico City taking the bus to Querétaro, they looked at my passport like they were like trying to figure out when I landed to see if I had overstayed my time. And it was really a whole thing. I'm like, why would I be overstaying in Mexico? It was so funny to me. And then this last time when I was leaving Mexico, I was randomly selected for secondary security screening. They wiped down my bag for drugs, looking for drugs, and wiped the middle of my hand. And it was a whole thing. And I was just like, this is very interesting. But yeah, it's very dehumanizing to go through some of these things, and it makes you want to just not travel. It really just makes you want to stay home where nobody can question you, like, because it's very dehumanizing to go through that experience. I cried. When they took her phone and I had no access to her, I didn't know where she was. I didn't know where she was eating. I was just like, this is crazy that they would treat humans like this.
It is crazy to hear, and I'm appreciative of you putting your story there online because we wouldn't know otherwise. We don't know.
Yeah, and so when people ask me why I would leave, I think people have a misconception that I left Jamaica looking for a better life, and I went to Mexico to live. Like, I want people to know that my life in Jamaica was very cushy, actually. Like, I say it on my channel that I left Jamaica right when I had kind of set up my life pretty perfectly. Like, I had a great apartment with a 4th floor view of the city. I had a nice job working for myself. I had a perfect SUV. Life was good. I really just wanted to experience more. I wanted to be like, oh, let me do the digital nomad thing and start traveling the world and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't running from anything. So when people are like, why don't you stay in Mexico? It's better. And I understand why Jamaicans leave Jamaica in search of more opportunity, but that's not everybody's story. I loved my life in Jamaica. That's why I'm choosing to go back to Jamaica, because people are asking me like, okay, why don't you choose another country to live in? Or why? I don't want to live anywhere else. I want to go back home and travel more. That's it.
Right.
That's what I want to do.
So outside of this experience with immigration, was there any part of your everyday life that you feel was influenced by the U.S.? Like being in Mexico, did you still feel a U.S. influence? Because a lot of people are thinking about moving to get away from the American policies, and we can see that it still affects immigration. But is there anywhere else where American policies are infecting Mexico?
I'm not quite sure that it affected day-to-day life like that. Like, as I tell people, you are you wherever you are. And so it's funny that when you hear sometimes of people experiencing racism in Mexico, sometimes it's from people who are not Mexican. It's from other expats, because white people from America love Mexico too. Canadians love Mexico too. So they come and you interact with them, because what we do is we tend to go to another country, but we crave familiarity. So we go to these expat events and expat spaces, and so you interact with other expats from different parts of the world, and that's when you realize that, because some of the times you would think that the people who've actually done it, they've left their country looking for greener pastures, those who are leaving for policies, as you say, you think that they are more open-minded. And so some of the times when I come across people with, and I have to side-eye people, I'm just like, oh, that's crazy that you left your home to come here and still. So I've had some of those experiences, but it's not from Mexico or Mexicans. Mexico is still very territorial about their country. And so, yes, they will, when I'm traveling, you'll experience it at the airport. You will experience like the questioning, and they're going to question everybody. This experience that I had with my mom, another expat experienced it with her mom as well, because she did not have a return ticket back to the US. So it's not just because I'm Jamaican, and it's for different reasons. Mexico is going to try and protect their country as well. But it did not, I can't say that she was able to get her mom out of the airport because, she just bought a return ticket for her. I was not able to get my mom, but I don't think it was affecting day-to-day life though.
Okay, yeah. I have heard that also, where people move to Mexico and they're looking down on the Mexicans, that they moved to their country and they're still like treating them.
It's not hard for me. It's just like, you chose to come here, so why is the complaint? It's like, that part boggles my mind. Like, you chose to leave your country and come here. So
yeah. Okay, so you wake up and it's Tuesday morning. What was your life like in Merida?
And that's where I say that I realized that I could have been doing this at home. My life was pretty much the same. I will get up, I will make tea or a smoothie or something. I will, if my daughter is going to, when she was doing the schooling thing, if she was going to school, then I would help her to get ready so she could go off to the homeschooling pod. Or previous to that, if she was just doing homeschooling, then I'd wake her up and make sure that she's online for her homeschooling thing. I'd open my computer. I'm at work doing freelance copywriting. Then in the evenings, when she's off school, I'm off, I'm either looking for some new restaurant to go try out because we want to try all the foods, or we're going to the mall because malls are a big thing in Mexico. This is where I learned the term third space. This is where everybody goes to hang out, especially because Merida is so hot.
Yes,
especially in the summertime. So the malls are where people go to hang out. You're not really hanging out in streets if it's hot. You're going to the mall to just kind of walk around and eat ice cream. So we'd probably be at a mall trying to get something to eat, or we're ordering in and we are just at home. And so that's why I'm saying that life was pretty much the same for me back when I was in Jamaica. It's just that our experiences were different. And so like, I would try to make sure that every weekend we would do like some kind of road trip to go check out a cenote or check out a new, beach or whatever it was. I would do the same thing in Jamaica. Like, we would have a thing in Jamaica, me and my daughter, where we would always try to be at the beaches. We would go waterfall chasing. So this is where I was just like, you know what? I need to go home. I need to go home.
Okay, so what is a must-try dish in Mexico?
Mm. My answer is going to be very Merida centered because, you know, the Yucatan, the food in the Yucatan is probably is not widely, I don't think it's, I don't know if it's, you can get it like in Mexico City or Puebla or wherever else. Cochinita pibil is like a slow roasted pork dish that is absolutely divine when you find it in like a home setting. Like you have to go to somebody's yard to get
Mhm.
it. That because you can get it in like restaurants who do it the fast way. You don't want that one. You want them pulling it out from underneath the earth where they actually roast it. It is divine. If you do not eat pork, do not go to the Yucatan. It is a very pork heavy place.
Okay.
I have a friend there who when she came, she was vegan, and she was like, "Okay, vegan's not gonna. I mean, you can do it if you are going, you know, very strictly about it, sure, but it's difficult, especially if you want to eat Mexican or local." Eventually, she started to do chicken, and we would pull up to the taco stands. They don't have chicken tacos; it's pork. It's like really pork. So the Cochinita Pibil, around their independence, they have another one that I really love. What is it called now? I don't remember the name, but I have a whole video on it on my channel because it's the dish is with poblano peppers, so that's green with a white sauce with pomegranate seeds, so it's red, white, and green for Mexican flag. It's divine.
Did you travel as much in Mexico as you did when you were living in Jamaica?
No. And that is, I wanted to. That was the plan. That was very heavily the plan to travel throughout Mexico. There are still some places that I want to go to, like Oaxaca
Mhm.
and Puerto Vallarta and Cabo. There are still Mexican places that I want to visit myself, and that was on the list. So no, I did not get to do a lot of that. I didn't even go to Tulum, which is like crazy to me. But there was a reason for that. Like I kept hearing that Tulum isn't now what Tulum was, you know, back in the heyday or whatever. So I went to Playa, and I felt like, okay, you go to one beach town, touristy town, you've seen them all. So.
True. So what is it like living in Jamaica? We have a couple of people that joined. Your channel again is Mo the Traveling Jamaican. We can get more videos from you there. If anybody has any questions, so if you have any questions for Monique, you can put them in here, and I will put them on the screen. Her channel is Mo the Traveling Jamaican, and I was asking you what was life like in Jamaica.
Yeah, so my life is pretty much the same. I wake up, I make a smoothie, I open my computer, I do work. Like it was exactly the same. The difference is that because you have your network of friends, the nightlife is completely different for me. Like I have a very active social life when I'm in Jamaica, and it can run all week. Like I can do something every single night of the week if I allow myself to. And then I like to go on the weekends with my daughters to the beach or just somewhere in the country because we live in the city in Kingston. My
Oh,
parents have always lived outside of the city, so whether I'm going to visit my mom in Ocho Rios, trying to visit the beach somewhere, or go chase a waterfall, climb a mountain, something. We try to do that on the weekends. We go to the beach because I love the beach.
okay. And what like do you do during the week? Because you said your social life is very full. Because here, people kind of go out to the bars, and that's pretty much it during the week. You could do a lot of like movies and stuff, but what do you do in Jamaica?
I think a lot of it is the bars too. It's just
Okay.
that, I mean, I guess because at the bars, we will, it's really just the bars, but at the bars, it's different. Like we go to karaoke or we'll go see a live performance because, you know, the Caribbean. So all the up and coming artists, they're performing at different bars around the city. And I like to go and do these little intimate shows that they have. I like to go and do that. So especially on I remember like on a Thursday night, we'd go to this bar that has a live band and, you know, it has an open mic and people would come out. And then on a Saturday, there's one on the beach down in St. Thomas. So I like that kind of scene where I'm kind of chasing live performances, or I'm doing like I love karaoke. So find me at a karaoke bar, or I'm out playing. So I know Black people love to play spades. I learned to play spades in college. I quickly moved on to Kaluki. Not many people from America know what Kaluki is, but that's what I play in Jamaica with my friends. We're always at a bar playing Kaluki or dominoes or just hanging out.
Nice. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here unless anybody has any questions. Thank you for talking with us and sharing your experience in Mexico, in Merida. And what did you think about Mexico City?
I love Mexico City. I think Mexico City is great to go visit. I don't know that I would live there. I think it's too big city for me. So the traffic was crazy to get anywhere. And it was just like you would have to be somewhere walkable and just kind of stick to where you can walk to for me in Mexico City. And I didn't like that. The traffic was just crazy. But it's nice to go and visit. And so that's one of the things that I loved about being in Mexico is that I could hop on a very affordable domestic flight and go check out something else when I was bored, I guess. Mm-hmm. And Mexico City satisfied that for us. And then a lot of like the big concerts that maybe won't come to small town Merida, you might be able to catch a concert in Mexico City. So that was pretty cool. It's also like a bigger melting pot. So I remember there being actual Jamaican restaurants in Mexico City. My friend, she went to like an actual soul food restaurant in Mexico City as well. So the food scene was amazing in Mexico City. But yeah, too much traffic, too much noise, too much busyness. I remember our Airbnb had like, I want to say like 16 Starbucks that we could walk to. Like,
oh my gosh.
walk to. I was like, that's crazy. Like, yeah.
All right. So we will end it here. You could stay on and then I will just end the live stream. So
okay.
See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.